After everything else that had happened today, I didn't think that my heart could sink lower in my chest. But as I slowly made my way across the street, I felt my heart sink past my stomach to my toes. Each step my body took forward, a crushing blow to my already tortured ticker. As I stood outside, I heard the familiar voices of my best friends. Joey, who owned the bar, was cracking jokes, as always. Mike and Larry were laughing their asses off while Brent and his GF Brandy argued loudly. I could hear all of this, the sounds of my closest friends simply living their lives as I begged my body to turn around, to leave, and go anywhere else. I was confused as instead of walking into the bar, as I feared it would, or walking away as I hoped it would, my body just stood and listened. The arguing got louder for a moment before I heard what I could only imagine to be a snarky joke from Joey, followed by the chorus of Brent, Mike, and Larry's laughter, followed by footsteps quickly headed toward me. My body slipped to the side behind the door as it swung open. A voice I recognized as Brandy's yelled, "Fuck you guys, I'm going home." She sounded upset, I thought to myself. I wondered what they did to upset her this time, before I heard Joey say, presumably to Brent, "Aren't you going to get her?" To which Brent replied, "Nah, she does this all the time." His sentence was cut short by the door closing shut. I thought my heart was going to crawl back up my body like a rope ladder and fall out of my mouth as Brandy walked toward the curb and pulled out her cigarettes, staring off into the street, painfully unaware that my body was pinned directly behind her, silently following like a shadow. I wanted to scream out, to warn her in any way, but I couldn't muster as much as a whisper. She put a cigarette to her lips and patted her pocket. "Oh shit, I forgot my lighter," she said, before she turned around. When she turned around, she jolted backwards, likely frightened at my silent presence before saying, "Oh shit, Peter, you scared me." I stood still for a moment before my arms shot out in front of me. My hands instantly found their position on her throat. As my body choked the life out of her, I thought about how much I had always enjoyed her presence in our little gang, even if she fought with Brent too often. The eye contact as I choked her was brutal for me emotionally, but I felt like I had to at least try to tell her with my eyes that I was sorry, a message I doubt she understood or received as her eyes became still and her heart stopped beating. I was thinking about the fleeting nature of connection and how meaningful of a member of my group Brandy had been as my body tossed her corpse into the street. I wanted this to end so badly, but my body, relentless in its mission, dragged my shattered soul silently kicking and screaming into my best friend's bar. As I walked in, I couldn't help but feel disgust for my friends. They were still laughing about Brandy. As Joey saw me, he perked up and shouted, "Peter!" before he said, "Brandy out there throwing a fit still? Or is she ready to come sit at the adults' table?" I was disgusted. They were making fun of her as she lay dead in the parking lot. Some people have no respect, I thought to myself. I doubted they would have been laughing if they knew what I had just done to her, especially Brent. Despite the slight irritation I felt towards my friends in the moment, there is no way that I could ever reasonably say they deserved what happened to them next. I silently walked past my friends into the bathroom. As I made my way past them, Joey said, "Peter, what's wrong, buddy? No hello? How's it going? Fuck you or nothing?" But I didn't reply as I walked past, and based off the state of the bar, I noticed that they were already all likely very intoxicated. Before I stepped into the bathroom, my body did something that confused me. I stopped right outside the bathroom door, looked to my left, and turned on the jukebox. The most recently played track, Highway to Hell, started playing. And as I walked into the bathroom, I slid the volume tuner all the way up. The music was so loud that the mirror in the bathroom vibrated as I looked at myself in it for a moment, before my body turned to face me toward the door. I thought I was going to do something in there, but I didn't.
I was seemingly just lying in wait for the first of my friends to stumble into the bathroom. I was afraid for them, as I had seen firsthand what my body was capable of. As I wondered which of my friends would be the first to walk in, I couldn't really think of any order that I would have been happy with. I love all of my friends. I could have spent forever in that moment if I were allowed to. Standing alone with good music on had been the best part of my awful day so far, even if I was standing in a smelly men's bathroom. At least for the moment, I wasn't hurting anyone. My brief reprieve was unfortunately interrupted by the door opening, as Brent sluggishly stepped in and the door closed behind him. He made his way past me to the last of the 3 sinks, deepest in the bathroom, before he started splashing himself with water. He looked like he was about to throw up when he said, "I feel like shit, Peter," before I walked over to him and slammed his head against the mirror. He immediately started to bleed from his head, but he wasn't done. He punched me in the face as I heard the song switch, now playing "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor." As weird as it sounds, I was proud of Brent for trying to fight back. I just wish he could have won. It would have been far better than what happened. I had no physical reaction to the punch as I grabbed him and threw him into the stall on the end. He started kicking, which in my mind was a good idea, but it didn't work. My hand caught his foot and dragged him off the toilet. He fought me so hard that he had turned himself completely around. At this point, my body decided to do the unthinkable. I stood up over him before quickly bending over and forcing his face into the toilet. He was thrashing hard, and to be fair, I would have too. "Not the toilet! I'm sorry, buddy," I thought, as I felt his thrashing slow to a stop. I was horrified at what I had just done. I couldn't imagine doing that to my worst enemy, let alone one of my closest friends. I silently wished for a self-destruct button. The pain I was causing didn't make sense to me. Every cell in my body was screaming in protest as I calmly walked out the bathroom, and as I walked by the jukebox, I turned it off. My body dragged me toward the bar, and as I approached my friends, I could tell that they were severely impaired. I wanted to warn them, to stop, to do anything to prevent what was coming.
But I've never been a very lucky person. As I got closer to the bar, I saw Mike lean back too far in his chair before rocketing backwards to the floor. He was so inebriated that he didn't even get back up. My body continued its march forward until I was standing over Mike's body. I stared down at him for a moment when I heard Larry say, "What are you doing, Pete? Aren't you going to help him up?" I looked up at Larry with no emotion on my face, despite the hell I felt inside as I lifted my foot before slamming it through Mike's head. The deep squeeze and sickening pop reminded me of the time I accidentally crushed the watermelon my mother was growing. The moment I did it, my best friend Joey drew his firearm on me, and Larry stood up off his stool in a panic, screaming, "Peter, what the fuck did you do?" My body stood still as Joey, through wet eyes, said, "Put your goddamn hands up, Peter. If you move, I will shoot you. Do you fucking understand me, man?" My body nodded before I jolted towards Joey. As his finger moved to the trigger, I dragged Larry in front of me like a human shield. Despite Larry's resistance, all he could do was move exactly where my body needed him, and all I could scream in my mind was the word "No!" as I watched Joey squeeze the trigger and felt Larry violently shift in my arms one final time. "No, Larry!" Joey screamed in a profound yet painful way, a feeling I could fully relate to, a scream I had been mirroring on the inside all day. I stared into his eyes, trying to explain with them, but I could tell that he didn't see polite Peter, his best friend. He saw a killer. There was nothing but contempt in his eyes. Tears ran down his face as he said, "You motherfucker!" before he pulled the trigger and the gun clicked. Hearing this, my body immediately reached for him, pulling him over the bar, before I sat on his stomach and punched him repeatedly until his face no longer resembled a face at all. I stared at the destroyed face that used to be my best friend when I felt my blinking change. It was an automated process. I had no choice in that. I had gotten used to it. I wasn't even thinking about it at first. I was staring at him unblinking when I wished I could close my eyes and keep them shut. And to my surprise, the next time my eyes closed, they didn't automatically reopen. They stayed closed. I stayed that way for a moment, appreciating the seemingly small but really huge to me autonomy to choose to keep them closed. I might have stayed locked in that moment forever if my nose hadn't itched. When my hand automatically moved to scratch my nose, it felt different, less tactile, less smooth than my motion had been ever since I woke up in the hospital. My movement felt more or less the way it felt before the accident. I opened my eyes, and they followed my command. I was staring at my hands, studying them, seemingly normal hands, and painfully my own, and wondering if I could ever forgive them. In this moment, I couldn't help but collapse into a heap of emotion on the floor as I allowed my body to feel all of the torment that has ravaged my mind in the silence of the bar, now littered with my dead friends.
From this unenviable position, I heard the TV in the corner play a patriotic tune before I heard our current president begin to speak. My fellow Americans, I'm calling this presidential address today to inform the public of a successful anti-terrorist mission that successfully cleared the terrorists out of the nation of Taured. This mission was completed by an elite task force of highly trained and decorated soldiers who, thanks to the brilliant minds over at the Merriweather Institute, have been outfitted with the latest and greatest innovation of modern war, AI battle enhancement pathways that connect directly to the soldier's brain, allowing them to make the most brutally efficient decisions that an average human would mess up 20% of the time, with a 100% success rate. This new technology will change the way wars are fought, but as of right now, there is only one group on the planet who has it, and so far, I haven't seen a single downside. I felt his words wash over me with a cold dread as they recontextualized everything I had been through today. I cried up at the TV, "What about me?" But I knew I wasn't ever getting an answer. I wondered if the people of Taured that had been killed were anything like the people I had murdered. Doctors, bakers, video store owners, and friends.